Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mazevo training. My name's Brian. Today's training session was recorded at a recent Mazevo Connect session led by Mazevo CEO Dean Evans. The topic is on the Find Events tool in Mazevo, which, as its name suggests, is a great tool for quickly finding events and bookings that you need, but it's also a very useful report writer as well. So let's get started.
Good afternoon, everybody. Let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll just jump right in. As Brian said, today we're going to kind of focus on find events. They made me do this since I'm the one that loves find events. Everybody else likes the book, so they're going to do the book someday. But find events in EMS, for those EMS users, you had three tools. You had browse bookings, browse events, and then you had the query builder. And we've kind of consolidated those all under find events. So let me just kind of start with the book, the one that I like the book. Don't get me wrong, I like the book. But I see a lot of people come into the book and try to find things, okay? And we've tried to facilitate that so you can use this search by and you can use the weekly view and things like that. But find events is another tool that you can use to literally just find events, and you can do reporting on it. So I've opened up find events here. So there's a couple ways you can get to it off of here, right here, find events. So we're going to kind of start small and we're going to keep going and adding more little features to this and kind of describe all this stuff for you as we go here. Let me move a few things around here. Okay, so in its simplest form, you want to just find a list of events. And I've come in here, it's got all the default settings. So I literally can come down here and say, click on the today button here, and it's going to pull up today's events. Okay. It's really simple. It's just that easy. Now to get back, if that's not what you really wanted, if you come back up here and click on filters, it'll take you back so you can make some changes here. You can pick any of these others and we're going to talk about those. But I wanted to come in here and show you this date range option here. So if you hit this little down arrow, you get this little list of predefined date ranges. So the next 7 days, this month, next month. And everybody, believe it or not, specific dates is like the most heavily used here. So you can put in your own date range if you want to. But for purposes of today, I'll just say, give me the next 7 days. So it's just that easy. It's pulling up all of the bookings for the next 7 days. Now, a couple things I want to bring to your attention here. These are bookings that are confirmed and block space. So your canceled and your denied bookings will not show here. If you're using requests, request will show here, okay? So just kind of keep that in mind. And there's really not an option in this standard view to get canceled events in there, okay? Because again, we didn't want you clicking a lot of buttons to get here. So let me go back to this list. Just some things I want to bring up here. You've got 95 bookings in the next 7 days. That's what that 95 is here. And it doesn't, I don't know whether everybody knows this, but you can sort just by clicking on these column headings, and you can assort ascending, descending, or just remove the sort. It comes up in date, time, order by default, but you can change that and to whatever you want here. If you want to sort by status, so you can see here's your tentative and your conflicts and things like that. Those are there as well. And then, we've got organization, contact, and then over here, you've got your setup style and your services and a couple of other little buttons over here. If you're using, if a view-only user, view-only event planner can get to this, but if what they can see here is if you hit this little information icon, it's going to bring up more details about the booking, including all the resources and the price. So this is the cost of that single booking, okay, not the entire event. So it kind of gives you some things at a glance without having to open up the event. You can get to some of that information really quickly. This next icon here is for calendar details, and we'll save that for another session. And then this last icon here is for messaging. So for the people that are using our built-in chat messaging, this is how you can get directly to the messaging for that one particular event. So it's kind of an easy way to get in there if you needed to chat. So for full event planners, global administrators, you can just click on anything in here, this budget meeting, and you can open it up and you're right into our event editor and you can do anything you want to that. So that's kind of just the standard stuff there. A couple other things you can do here. I really want you guys to start using this search for. It's at the top of all of the grids in Mazevo. And you can use this, and I'm a horrible typer. You'll see that throughout today's presentation. So I only type in a few things. So here I've typed in request, and it's showing me all of the meetings, all of the bookings that have REQ in there. And I was hoping to just find the request status right here, but there must be REQ somewhere else in this. Oh, it's my contact name has request in it. So, but if you wanted to find those conflicts that we saw a little earlier, you can type in conflict, and I'm filtering by status, but you can filter by anything on that grid. So contact name, org, event name. So there's a couple things you can do there that are really nice. Don't know whether anybody's ever clicked this button, group by. But if you come in here and say, I want to group all of my bookings by building, it rearranges things and does it by building, by date, by time. Okay, so it's another way to look at things. And then if you want to turn grouping off, you can turn that off. Another button that nobody hits too much is this columns. So if you want to add additional columns to the results here, you can do that by coming here and hitting columns, and maybe you want to see what type of organization and their pricing plan. And it'll add those 2 columns over here at the end for your results. Now, if you export that, those 2 new columns now go into your spreadsheet and things like that. So, and it's easy to, if you pick the wrong column, you can just come back in here and, say, oh, I really want a private event, not org type. And it'll show you that particular column. Okay. And then finally, the last link here that's important is export. You can take the standard view and export it to PDF or Excel. And it takes it all over there for you. And whatever your columns are, go over in that. The last button here is this show is event. So in EMS, there was a browse reservations function, and this is kind of our equivalent. All we've done here is put it in here as a little link, and when you click this, it's going to then collapse everything. So if there was an event with multiple bookings in the next 7 days, it collapses it here into 1 row per event, and then it's showing you the first booking within the date range that you're selecting and the last booking and the status. Now, let's see if we can find one here that has multiple statuses. Here's one right here. So this men's basketball practice, it says status multiple. So what happens here is we're going to show you the word confirmed if all of the bookings in that date range for baseball are confirmed. But if there's multiple statuses on the booking, maybe one's tentative, one's confirmed, one's request, we just put the word multiple there. Now, the way you find out what they are is just simply click on this, and it's going to open the event and show you. And you can see here you've got a couple that are in conflict. So that's what multiple is. Okay. So that's show as events, and then you can toggle it back to show as bookings. So feel free to throw questions in the chat, and they'll alert me as we go here. Couple of other things I want to show you here. Let's go back to the beginning and go back to this filters here. So a couple other things you can do instead of going for all events. If you're looking for events for the basket weavers, which is one of your organizations, you can just simply come in here and start typing. Now, one thing to speed this up, if you had hundreds of organizations in your list, the last thing you really want to do is start scrolling through this list. Again, remember, Dean's a bad typer. So I made this for myself, so I can just start typing. I'm looking for the basket weaving club, and I just type in WE, and there's my basket weavers. And now, because I've limited the search by one of these 3 other fields here, actually 4, I now get some other choices in my date ranges, and I can actually do it for the entire year. Okay. And so that's kind of nice if you're looking, hey, give me this group's all of the events for the year. And it's calendar year. So you can see up here January 1st to December 31st. One other thing, this button right here, these little forward and backward arrows, that will actually take you to the following year. Okay, so I don't have anything out in 23, so let's go backwards and we'll go to 21. And those basket weavers, they love to do stuff. So they're very busy in our little demonstration database here. But these arrows, whatever date range you pick, so if I pick month, now it's going to scroll by month or back by month. Okay, so keep that in mind. It'll even do that if you do specific dates. Okay, so if you pick a weird date range, those arrows will move you forward and backward by the exact number of days in that date range. So you don't always have to come back here and start fiddling with your dates. You can just kind of scroll forward right from there. Okay. So let me go back to the next 7 days. Here's the basket weavers again. Now you can do the same thing for contact. And again, you can type in here, you know, if I'm looking for Dean, it'll filter that whole list down. Again, very handy. And it doesn't have to be the first part of it. Okay. It can be, if I'm looking for Brian Peck, I can start typing in his last name. So it's a free form search. So don't scroll is my message there. If you go to rooms, same thing here. If I'm looking for the student center, if I'm looking for the lounge, I just start typing. There's my lounge. And again, I want to see everything for this month in that lounge. So again, it's just a really quick and easy way to get to the data. And again, from here on this screen, we can open it. We can click any of these other buttons. They're all the same when you're on this particular screen. Okay. And the last one, believe it or not, is used the most. And that kind of surprises me because people come in here and type in their event name if they're looking for a meeting. We've got one in our demonstration database, Baskets of South America. So when you come in here and start typing, you have to, when you use this event name, you have to give me at least 5 characters. And people are going to probably go, well, why do you make me type 5 characters? Dean, you're a horrible typer. Why wouldn't you just put the letter B there? Well, I don't want to find every event in the system for all of time for anything that has the letter B in the event name. So we wanted to just try to narrow it down a little bit. So if I'm looking for anything with basket in there, so there's your basketball, Baskets of South America, things like that. Now, again, going back to I'm a lazy typer, another way to look for an event by event name is just stick with all events and say, I'm looking, if you know the date range. If you don't know the date range, then you're probably going to have to open that up, and that's where event name would come in handy. But if you know you've got the basket weavers doing something this month, you can come over here and type in basket right here, and it'll filter it down, right? So the more you type, and there's your basket weavers there. The advantage here is you get to see all of the events in the time period. And if you mistype something, you can back up and go, oh, well, I'm looking for the weavers. Okay, so I think you get the same thing here by doing all events, and it's just as easy, and you get to see all of the stuff. Whereas if you're typing in the event name here, you just kind of get one shot at it. But feel free to do whatever strikes your fancy there. So I'll kind of pause there. Showed you a lot of stuff. Has anybody got any questions they want to throw in the chat?
There was one question in the chat here from Sarah. She's just asking, if there was any reason why, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, why we don't have just a generic show me all the future events or all the past events instead of, these specific date range options. I don't know if you want to talk about that at all.
It's the only reason in this drop down that we wouldn't say give me all past events. If you had 10 years worth of history, that would be a lot of stuff to bring back. So we're doing it primarily for performance. You'll notice when I do all events, I don't have this year and next year and last year. Again, I'm bringing back all the events, and I just don't want it to be slow for you. So that's why we're bringing back a smaller set of data. But if you do organization and you come down here, you can, now that you've given me something to filter on, I now give you, a wider date range. But if you're looking for all past events from here for the basket weavers, you're right. You'd have to go in here to date range and manually key that in. But did that answer your question, Sarah?
Yes, and that's exactly what I was looking for when you are narrowing it to that organization, contact, or room. But most importantly, the organization and contact, I think, would be where that would be most useful, so that you don't have to guess how far back it goes and be able to see a full history.
Yeah, let me give you one other thing, kind of off topic, but to answer your question, if you come over here to contacts or to organizations, okay, there's an icon right here, and this is going to show you everything for the basket weavers. So this is the by organization, and this is all of the current, meaning today forward, and here's all of the past events.
Perfect. I think that works as well. Thank you.
And you can open them from here as well. So, okay. All right, back to find events. So if nobody's got any questions on that, I'm going to jump into advanced. So we kind of got everybody grounded here. Reasons to go to advanced, you can pretty much do anything you want over here on this side of things. So let's kind of go through some of the basics of advanced. That doesn't make sense now, does it? So you've got two options on your date range. You can do this days, where you can say, well, I want the next 30 days. Okay. Or if you want your specific date range, here's your start and end dates. Okay. So you can kind of do it either way. But if, just to make it go fast, I like everything to go fast. If I just come in here, these columns are the default columns that we've set for you. And we're going to talk about that here in a second, but I just want to hit search, and you're going to see it's essentially the same grid, slight differences, but you see the data, these columns, or what was in that column picker. So let me go back here. Now, you can actually start adding or removing columns. If you don't want the services on there, you can just remove it. If you want to add a column, you click in this box and it comes up with a bunch of columns. And what happens is, and I think we could do a better job of this, you don't really realize that you can scroll because there's a scroll bar kind of tucked over here, but there are tons of different fields when you scroll here that you can add to the results. Okay, so you've got contact email and organization email. We've heard a lot of, I need to email everybody that has a booking next week and let them know there was a maintenance problem and we have to move things around. So you could simply add contact email address as a column, and then when you get your results, you could push that into Excel and do some kind of merge to send out a message to those folks. But let's go through some of these. You've got the contact phone number, you've got your tax and service charges. Event coordinator is another big one that a lot of people want to see. If you use event coordinator, I'll put that in there. First booking, last booking. So again, you can see all of these. There's a bunch of columns here and way down here at the bottom. I'm not sure where your customer access, I was expecting to see the user defined questions. Well, that kind of messes that up. Anyway, let's go ahead and put event coordinator and maybe billing code in here, just so you get the idea here. And then when you hit search, it's going to get you the next 7 days. Now, this is going to be a little bit different. It's going to find you anything. It's not filtering on status. So you're now seeing canceled and all of these other statuses. We've got academic statuses in here, and you may not want those. So let's talk about the next button on this screen, and that's this add filter. So standard, these are your filters right here, okay? In advanced, you have a ton of filters that you can add. So you click this and you say, well, I want to filter it down to a particular building. And you can click that. Now you can say, I want a particular status and a building. So when you add filters, each filter that you add is thrown down here. And now when you click in this box, you can then come down here and say, well, I want the Student Center or Kent Hall. Okay. And then for statuses, I only want confirmed. Okay. So you can pick and choose as many of the statuses in here. It's not necessary to pick all of these statuses if you unless you really, if you need all statuses, you don't even need to filter by status, I guess is my point. You'd only add the filter if you want to reduce the number. So here's our date range again. Student Center, Kent Hall, only confirmed events, next 7 days, and here you go. So there's your results and all of your information here. And again, you can sort the columns, you can open the events, you can do pretty much everything you could on the standard, but you have that here. And instead of that group by, you have the option to come up here and drag this up here, and I want to sort and group by building and room. And in this case, you're seeing the Student Center and the Ballator Gallery, and you can kind of group by multiple things, okay? So there's the option to get that information. Now, when you hit export and push that into Excel, that grouping will go with it. So it'll show up like that in Excel, okay? So back to the beginning here. Let's go back up here. So filters, this is really there's some great stuff in here that you can do. We have a lot of people that want to run a list of events or bookings by event coordinator. So you can come in here and you can actually filter by event coordinator and add that filter in. And I've got one event coordinator, Susan. So I'll add Susan to the list. And now it's going to filter and only find you Susan's events that she's the event coordinator on. Okay, so when I hit search, I think I have one out there. For people that don't use event coordinator, you can see over here, the event coordinator. To add an event coordinator, you can change this event by event, or you can set a default for an organization, but it's done under that change right there. So event coordinator, let me look at my little list here. Moving right along. So that's coordinators. Let me throw that filter out. If you just want to add coordinator as a column here, you can come in and just add it right here, event coordinator. And now it'll just be in this, it'll be a column in the thing, but you're not filtering by it. So if we come over here, here's Sue right there, okay? So a lot of stuff. And then again, if you had lots of event coordinators from right here, you can sort that column. You could also look for things with Susan over here. You just start typing Susan's name. So she's a contact on one, and she's an event coordinator on this other event. So, okay. Back here. So that's kind of the basics. If you've come in here and you're playing around, you're looking for data and you're kind of like, what is going on? There's this reset button. If you get in too deep and you just want to reset it, you can hit that and it sets your columns back and it gets rid of the filters. And then when you hit search, you'll get your basic stuff that you would have seen when you first came in. So that's what the reset button, it just kind of throws everything away that you've done and gets you back to a blank slate. So I just want to check one other thing here. I don't know why that's.
If you refresh maybe, because I'm seeing them on my side, so.
Okay. Yeah, this is one thing that we put in here. So if you had the event questions that you're soliciting answers from a requester as they're going through the process, do you need any additional, setup information or things? All of those questions are actually columns that you can put on your queries here. So will there be alcohol served? That's one of the questions. And I'll put that in there. And I'm not sure we're going to see anything here with that, but we'll go ahead and run it. And it now becomes a column right here. So we don't see anything, but we can also sort that ascending or descending, and it would flip that around. Picked a bad example of a column right there. If you want to get rid of that, let's see.
That top one, list additional room setup needs. That'll
have some stuff.
Yeah.
I know I typed those in there.
Yeah.
So you can see right here, these are the answers that they've typed in. So you can have more than one of those columns if you want to see those questions. Again, this is kind of the report writer, meaning that you can, if you get the column set the way you want, you can export those to Excel. Okay. So let me show you that really quick here. I'm going to show you what this looks like when you export it to Excel. So I've already done this before the presentation here, but this is what it looks like when you push it into Excel. So there's one little trick here in Excel. I don't know whether everybody's an Excel expert, but there's some things you can do over here that will make your life much, much easier. If you're pushing stuff into Excel, I would recommend the first thing you do is select all the data, and then you come over here to this sort and filter and say filter. Now what that does is it locks in the rows, so each row kind of stays together. So if I went in here and said insert, it's not going to get my data out of whack there. So it does that, but it also puts these little options up here at the top of the columns that are really, really handy. If I wanted to sort this now, I click that little down arrow and I can say sort by contact. And right here in Excel, I can quickly sort that. And I can also filter it over here and say, well, I only want Alice and I want Brian, and apply that filter, and it's going to knock that down to just those events. So we're really thinking that, you know, if you want a lot of reporting and filtering and stuff, Excel is probably a great place to go do some of that as you push that over there. So just kind of keep that in mind with what that can do. So back to find events. All right, let me see if I've got everything here. The last thing I want to do is start filtering and show you some of the things you can do here by resource. So this last display option here, bookings and resources, we defaulted to bookings, but if you're looking for things by resource, select resources, and you'll notice all of a sudden you get these extra columns in here that are kind of tied to the resources. So we'll just do the next 7 days and see what this thing brings us. Okay, so those first few columns are all the same. And then we get over here and you start seeing service provider and each individual resource quantity and amount that's there and the notes. So all of the information on resources is now in this grid. You can export it and it all goes into Excel as well. Okay. Now, this is where filtering would come in real handy. Let's say you have a catering department or an AV department, and they're looking for a list of things they need to provide. If the daily operations report doesn't work for them, because you can filter that down to just catering or AV, you could come in here and set up a set of filters for that. So all you have to do is come in here and say, I want to add a filter, and scroll down here to service providers, add the filter, come down to the filter and say, I want to find just catering. And now this is going to find you all of the resources in the next 7 days for the catering service provider. So when I hit search, and there it is. Now there's one thing here that I didn't do that I would encourage you to do on all of your queries, with few exceptions, and that is you really want to get in the habit of adding a status filter, okay? Because if you don't, you're going to get canceled and denied events in there. So you'd want to come over here and just select the statuses that you really want on there. Okay. So maybe I want tentative and just confirmed. So kind of get in the habit of on the advanced of using that status filter pretty much all the time. Okay. So, but as we scroll over here, here's all of the confirmed and tentative catering resources. So does anybody have any questions on that? We're still not done yet. We're going to find events up. So, all right. So you've taken the time to figure out where your data is, and you've got it filtered, and you've got your date range, and you're looking at it, and you go, you know, I don't want to have to do this again tomorrow. So there's this button up here called Save View. So when you hit this, it's going to come up and ask you, well, what do you want to call this? It will actually save all of your column selections and your filtering and the date range, kind of. Okay. If you do specific dates, it doesn't really save that very well. But if you did, I want the next 7 days, and I'll show you this in a minute. So I'm going to put Dean's advanced events. Now, told you I couldn't type or spell. So find available to other users. If you leave that off, this is your private filtering view, if you will. Okay. Checking that box makes it available to other users, and I'm going to show you that next. Okay. So I'm going to hit save. Where does that show up? And we'll come back over here. You don't have to scroll to the left to see this. You come back up here, and we really have these buttons up here: standard, advanced, and my views. My views are all of the things you've saved either in standard or advanced. So they're all right here. So there's that one that I just saved, Dean's advanced views or events, and it comes in here, and I said next 7 days. So if I run this tomorrow, it'll be the 29th through the 5th. Okay. So I just hit run, and there's all of my columns. It should remember all of my columns that I want on there. And again, it's just catering. Now you can, if you need to edit that or get rid of it, you can do that. You can edit the view and things like that. Let's say you forgot to make that public. Public, when you make it public, it's going to show up under public views for all of the event planners or any reporting user that can get to find events. Anybody that can use find events can use public views. Okay. And so these are things that were saved by other users. So it's going to show you the owner, and notice I can't edit this. Okay. I'm a global administrator, and that's why the delete button's there. So normally you wouldn't see this remove option. That's only for global administrators. But these are all of the things that somebody else has put in here. So here's a catering schedule. So all I'd have to do is click on it. It's probably exactly what I just did. And there's your events for just catering. So that's kind of the difference there. Public views, somebody else created. My views, those are the ones you created. And again, you can come back in here and edit these. So let me just run a couple of these. This Susan's events, this is one that I saved where I just want to find Susan's an event coordinator. And so you really couldn't tell that. My description when I saved it should have probably been event coordinator equals Susan, or something a little bit more descriptive so that I know that that's Susan's events. Okay. How do I know it's an event coordinator? Well, if I come in here and edit the view, it should give me, oh, here's that event coordinator, Susan. Okay. So you can edit these once you've created them. You can change that public private flag right here. I'll just jump back out because I don't need to save it. So specialty resources. This is kind of interesting. Specialty resources is just a list of individual resources that I want selected. And you'll look here at this list here, microphone, laptop, podium. Well, how did I get those in there? So let's go back and edit that so you can see I created an advanced view, but I did a filter by resource. And when you do it by resource, you literally get to pick each resource that you want to find. Okay. So it really gets pretty granular. if you can do the same thing with rooms up here. So if you've got 3 rooms that you want to find these 4 resources in, it's a really crazy combination, but you can pick and choose individual rooms out of your list of rooms in your system. So there's just tons of ways that you can slice and dice your data. Let's cancel out of there. I think that's about it. So let's talk about questions and things. Anybody have any questions on what they've seen, or thoughts or comments or anything?
All right. Thanks, Malika. Like your comment there about it being far easier than EMS. That's what we were going for. So, so people like the filtering options. That's good.
Oh, on the export there, Nancy, the export options, if you're in the standard, you can, I'll just do it for the next 7 days. You can export that to Excel or PDF. Okay. In the advanced view, you can only export to Excel. Okay. And the reason is, I mean, you start getting those columns, start adding a bunch of columns to it. It's going to squeeze it down on a PDF. And we're like, it's just probably not useful. If you really need to generate a PDF out of there, you could do that by pushing it into Excel and then saying save it as a PDF right out of there. So that's an option for you. So, oh, there's something there about reordering the columns. You can do that right in this advanced view. I guess I didn't show you that. You can, as you drag these up, let me go and do advanced, hit search. Yeah, I showed you how to group by, but you can actually change the order. Let's say you really want building and room to be flipped like that. So you can move these around if you want status over here. So there's some options there. And then when you export that, that'll take it off into Excel. So, oh, can you toggle? No, in advanced, you can't toggle between bookings and events. You can only do that in standard. And I don't have a good reason why. So, I wish I did. So just being honest. So,
I do have one question for the group. If anybody wants to share, if anybody's already using some of the advanced filtering to generate some of your own reports, if you want to share what those are and kind of how you found it useful, there might be other people in the group that would be interested in that. So feel free to share that if you either want to put that in the chat or just unmute yourself. We'd be interested to hear what that is.
I have a comment on that.
Mm-hmm.
Wendy taught me about, oh no, I'm going to forget what it's called. Not rooms, but like where you group a bunch of rooms together and you create, what is that called?
Room tags?
Yeah. So we have like our HVAC guy. He doesn't want the whole list of rooms. He just has to deal with a certain portion of those rooms. So that's become a filter that I use quite a bit in Find Events, so that we're only finding a specific group of rooms rather than going through the room list and picking this one, this one, this one every time.
Yeah.
Those tags have been very helpful.
Yep.
Yeah,
right
great
here.
example.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is Kathy at Park Cities.
Mm-hmm.
If y'all can hear me,
Yep.
I use it. We have a shopping center that's right next to the church, and they want to know our events on that end of the church every month in case it'll impact their parking. And so I've used this and I've saved it in my views. So every month I just go back to that same report, that find event query, and use it over and over. So it's been super helpful for that.
Nice.
I don't have to recreate the wheel every time.
Mhm.
You can't hurt anything by saving your view because you can edit it. You can always delete it. If I guess I'd say you start by putting it in your little bucket of views and not making it public. But if somebody else needs to run it, then you can always go and change it from your view to a public view. And you can only modify your own views. You can't touch anybody else's view, with the exception of a global administrator, I believe. So.
Nice.
Chris has got a good example. And Nancy, I think this might have been what you were asking about yesterday. Calendar items.
Oh.
Right.
The calendar details, Wendy?
Wendy's muted.
Ah.
So
Yeah,
So-
Chris, can you explain how you're using it?
We use it because I found that we were forgetting to check the little calendar details thing for every single event. So the easiest way for us to determine which events we had forgotten to do that for was to create this find events view. And all I'm looking for is, how do I have that worded? Calendar items for review. And it just flags any events that had a calendar item that we forgot. So then I can just click on it, go in there, look at the calendar item, approve it, and let it go. And that helps too, because sometimes people submit their event, we approve it, and they go in after the fact and add calendar items, and we don't know that they've done that. So we just go in there once a week and check it to see who might have done that.
Yeah. So for everybody, let me avert your eyes and let me get to this. Brian, is it your public events? Is that it? That has the baskets? So-
yes. Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Click that one.
Okay. All right. So what Chris is referring to is, so this is our public calendar, and you can, I refer to it as you can bedazzle your events. Okay. And what that means is you can add additional properties and details. So this Baskets of South America actually has it. So you notice that it pulls up an image, and it's got a lengthier description and a map on Google. So these extra elements are things that you can add to a booking, and those are called calendar details. So that can be put in by an event planner on an event, or you can actually have a requester add those in during the requesting process, or as Chris said, after the fact, they can edit. So if you want to talk about that, and that'd be a great connect thing, Brian,
Yeah.
is to talk more about that. But we don't let what Chris is referring to is, we don't want any requester just putting up information without going through a review process. So we've got the ability to find those properties, those calendar details that have been submitted and not reviewed. And that's what Chris is referring to. And there's a special filter at the bottom of this list called calendar details. And you can do all of them or the ones that need review. And that's what Chris is doing, is using this needs review and said, give me all of the things that have any kind of calendar detail that needs to be reviewed. And that's the kind of filter that she's using there. But that would find, an event description that the requester might have gone in and edited, and, for the people out there in student centers and things like that, you just never know what they're going to put in there. So that whole review process is a step that you'd want to have. So. Okay.
We haven't been using this very long, but the thing I used to have to do was remember middle of the month, the childcare people needed a report from me for everything for next month, and the custodian needed a report from me, and the so-and-so needed a report from me. So find events and saving those views has taken all those off my plate. I just save them in public, and then they go in there, and I set them up for like next month, and they can go in there on any day of the month and see all of their needs for the following month. And if they have questions, then they can ask, but at least they have to remember to do it themselves, which has been a really nice feature of learning find events quickly.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, we love that when people can go and kind of do self-service, if you will, and get the information themselves. So that's great.